Hi, this is David, and thank you so much for your time once again. I always appreciate that you do take your time to watch these things because I do take my time to make them, and this is one of the most exciting ones I've made. I think we're gonna have fun. Now, why is Jay-Z here on this shot? Well, Jay-Z has a saying that I really, really love, and he said once that he's not a businessman. He is a business man, you know. And he had a very good point. I think most people miss that. I think it's also in his one of his songs. I know not everyone listens to Jay-Z, but I do. But there's a big point he was trying to make in that song, right? He takes his life as a business. And by that, he doesn't mean that it's all about making money. No, he means it's about handling it as a business. Now, many of you work in corporations and you've seen how businesses run. They're systematic. There's a lot of things going on. Like a business cannot afford to make losses over a long time, cannot afford to run out of cash, and so on. So when it comes to individuals, to us human beings, people, we don't think of ourselves as businesses because that's a crazy concept. That's a very strange concept. You think of yourself as a person. In fact, you don't even think about the way money impacts your life in terms of the way a business would, because for you, you're just thinking, okay, look, I need to get groceries, I need to have some holiday time, I need to look after my kids, I need to, you think about it in a more humane way. You don't think about it in terms of a business. But money itself is, cash. Talking about cash here, physical money, doesn't care. It still works the same way whether you're a business or an individual. That's why it helps for us to change our perspective so that we can look at money as a business would look at money. In other words, we need to think about money systematically, think about wealth and income systematically. That's what Jay-Z was, well, at least that's what I think Jay-Z was talking about when he says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. So let's get going. I just find that funny. Cool. So, what is the core idea here? Physical money, and I've underlined the word physical because we're not talking about abundance here. We're not talking about, the universe is both physical, but it's mostly non-physical. Most of our lives are non-physical. When you look at life, even when you look at your body, although it looks solid, it's 96 or 98% space or things that you don't, the non-physical. So the non-physical is extremely infinite. It's crazy. I mean, the source of where we get all our things is infinite. But once it turns physical, the rules kind of change. So whereas we can withdraw from an infinite supply, the non-physical, the physical aspect that we have managed to manifest is not infinite. It is finite. It is defined by time and space. Now think about that. Non-physical is not defined by time and space. It is abundant. It is infinite. Physical is defined by time and space. Therefore, it is finite. So let's continue this sentence. If you want to know more about the non-physical aspect of wealth, please read my book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, which you can get from the website where you're watching this video, merlinmindpower.com. So that really covers non-physical wealth, and where we get to draw our physical wealth, the source of all things. So that's not what we're dealing with here. You can always read A Happy Pocket Full of Money or listen to it in your own time. Now, physical money, wealth, functions as a finite and defined system, even though you may not realize it. So the key is to start seeing this system, becoming aware of it, right? Understanding how it works, and then you start living this system deliberately. The system itself guarantees success, as you'll soon see. Now, it's very dangerous to play against the system, in other words, to break the rules, because the the weather system, for example, everything in life is a system. When you look at, let's say, the weather system, the water system, the water cycle, how water comes from like the skies, falls down into our lakes, rivers, oceans, evaporates, goes back again. That's a system. If you try to play against the system, you're going to lose. If you understand the system and then you play with it or even manipulate it along its laws, then you're going to win. So it's very dangerous to play against the system. So please, let's pay attention here. Now we're going to look at three parts of this system. Well, there are many ways you could break it down, but I broke it down in these three ways. You're going to recognize the first line, because especially if you've run a business or you've been involved in accounting. We're going to look at the profit and loss aspect of this system. Then we're going to look at the balance sheet, and then we're going to look at the cash flow. Every business has to do this. Every accountant knows what I'm about to talk about when it comes to this, but I want us to look at it in terms of an individual. Then we're also going to look at liquid money, taps and buckets. You'll understand why it's called taps and buckets in a moment. In fact, that's what we're going to start with, and we're going to end up doing profit, loss, balance sheet, and cash flow last. And then we're also going to look at forced savings and investments. Now, these three form the system that we are talking about here. Now, your aim with this system should be to make money work for you and for you to eventually stop having to work for money. Yeah? How? Well, it's a very simple system. Concept. Whatever you have, I know not everyone has a lot of money to spare, but whatever little you have, trust me, you can make that little grow into a very big tree. Whatever little you have. A lot of people say, if only I had a bit more, I would be able to get out of this rat race. It's not about that. Even if you earned $500,000 a year and you broke the rules, you'd still be trapped in a rat race. Even if you earn $4,000 a year and you work with the rules, you will escape the rat race. I have seen real life examples of this, and I'm saying this with 100% confidence. I can wager my right hand on this. Whatever little you have, you can make it grow big time to the point where you're free. However much you have, if you don't play by the rules, you're very likely to have to keep working for money. All right? So the reason why things grow is because of something called compound interest. We'll learn in a second what that is. We'll define it. My apologies. I have a little bit of a cold, a blocked nose from my swimming. So please excuse me. All right. So now, for example, if you put in $1 every single day into an investment that grows 20% a year, you would end up with $1 million in 32 years. Okay, fine. 20% is a very high growth rate. A lot of investments don't go 20% a year. Very few do. Maybe shares in Apple and Google or whatever. I don't know. But they're there. There are lots of investments that grow at 20%. Actually, quite a lot, but most don't. Okay, but bear with me here. If you put in just $1 a day, yeah, just $1 a day. Maybe if, let's say, you drink coffee, you don't drink that cup of coffee. You instead put $1 a day. Maybe if you, I don't know, whatever it is you do, you just find that $1 a day, sacrifice it, put it in there. Within 32 years, it will be $1 million. In fact, if you are to keep putting $1 a day into an investment that grows 20% a year for 66 years, it will become $1 billion. Right? How many people have $1 a day on this planet? Okay, not the majority, but many, many, millions and millions of people can afford this. But that's for the $1 million or $1 billion, whatever. So if you want a whole lot less, you can even put less than $1 a day. But the point is this: you can never have too little to start with. Whatever your income is today, if you get into the habit of investing 10% of that income before you pay any bills or taxes or anything else, in other words, if you pay yourself first and you invest it in a vehicle that gives you compounded interest, which is most investments, by the way, then you will have some kind of growth. Now, the trick is to reinvest your earnings. So now we're going to define compound interests. Let your earnings also earn. Yeah. For example, if you put in $100 in an investment that earns 10%, and at the end of the period it becomes $110, right? So I mean 10% of $100 is $10. So let's say you put in $100 today. At the end of the year, this investment returns you 10%, so you get 110%. You don't eat the 10%. The next year you reinvest the whole 110. So rather you stay invested, and that at the end of that year will now become 110 plus 10% of that, which is, I believe, $11. So now you take 110 plus 11, which is 121, right? So that's the end of the next period, and then you keep that money there and then you let it go again. So this is what compound interest means. It simply means that your gains are reinvested. So your money bears children, and those children bear children, and the children of those children bear children, while at the same time the original parent and the first generation of kids and the second generation are still bearing children. So every single dollar is bearing kids every year, and those kids of those dollars are bearing more kids, and so on. So you don't consume the gain, you don't consume the kids, you allow the gain to be reinvested. Compound interest allows money to grow at an exponential rate. Albert Einstein once called it the most powerful force in the universe. Now here is a chart. Don't worry about these numbers. This was a chart that I was using for something else. So don't worry about why it says 150 or 833, 416. Don't worry about the numbers at all, or the years or the dollars. Doesn't matter. What I want you to notice is how at the beginning of this chart, where at the bottom it says 1357, the lines are almost flat. But over time, as the years go by, the lines start to rise and pick up very fast. That's how compound interest works. At the very beginning of your investments, you'll think, oh, why am I even doing this? Why am I sacrificing $1 a day, or $5 a day, or $10 a day? Why am I doing this? It's going nowhere, it's going nowhere. My investment looks so small. But after a while, that thing will start to speed up and fly. It will just amaze you, but you have to stick with it. You have to stay in there. That's the point. If you start consuming the money and withdrawing, you'll always go back to zero again, back to zero. You have to stay invested, and then it flies towards the end. That's what compound interest does. All right? Now, let's talk about the first part of this system, which is the money taps and buckets. Now, money is called a liquid asset for a very, very good reason. It flows. No matter what you do, it flows. Have you noticed that? If you've got $5 in your pocket, for some reason, if you walk out of your house, that $5 will go. If you have $100 in your pocket and you walk out of your house, for some reason, a lot more than $5 will go out because you have 100. If whatever money you have in your pocket seems to find a way to be spent, it just somehow works. Whatever money you have in your bank seems to find a way to be spent. Money is called a liquid asset because it flows. It's designed to. That's its nature. It flows. It flows. Don't worry why, man. It's not your fault. It's not that you're spendthrift or you have no self-control. Money is designed to flow. Yeah. There'll always be something coming up. Like a friend will come up and say, oh my God, I need your help. Can you lend me this much money? And if you have it and it's nearby and you can access it, it flows. Something will come up. Or I want you to compare 2 points in your life. A point when you've had a lot of excess money and a point when you've had very little. Yeah? When you had very little, somehow you got by. You didn't die. It wasn't the end of the world. Maybe you're not even that happy or comfortable. Maybe you were wishing you had more. But somehow, you got by. Then when you had a lot and you thought, oh, with all this money, I'm going to do so much. What did you do? Quite likely, it flowed. You passed by a restaurant, you were hungry, you ate a big meal that you wouldn't have eaten when you're broke. You're walking by, a friend calls you, I need this money and everything, please can you lend me some money? You're like, I don't know, all right, here you go. It goes. It flows. That's the money tap. Now we need to talk about the buckets. But before we talk about the buckets, let's continue talking about the tap. Like a river, it must move, and it flows the quickest, simplest channel it finds. Whatever it's like a river, man. It will always find the path of least resistance. Money flows, dude. Yeah? So, just like a river, you need to build some dams, some reservoirs, put in some buckets, yeah, so you can catch it before it gets lost. All right. Now the key idea here is this: you better have prearranged places, investments and savings, and preferably ones that are very hard to liquidate, so that you can get this money flowing into those places once you get it. Otherwise, it will just flow down the drain. You have to have prearranged programs so that as your money comes in, you're like, okay, fine, I really have an obligation to put this. Let's say for example, you had one of those policies, investment policies that require you to put in a certain amount of money in them every month, and if you fail, there's a penalty. That will just force you like hell to put money in there. Yeah. Or let's say you have one of those investment policies that lock in your money for a certain amount of time, so even if you like it or not, you cannot withdraw it. That'll make sure you can't get it. That's what I mean. Places that are hard to liquidate, or maybe even if it's shares, but it takes a while to call your broker to click the sell button and everything. Just something that's a bit harder than a savings account with an ATM card attached to it. That's not gonna help you. Now, like I think maybe if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm a great fan of Roger Hamilton. He's a great at exploring and explaining things. Now, Roger Hamilton has a very good book called Wink. And in this Wink book, he's done an awesome job of illustrating this money tap thing. So the next 3 images are copyright Roger Hamilton. I took them from the book Wink, copyright Roger Hamilton. You should read that book, by the way, if you can get a hold of it. Anyway, so let's assume you have a job. Yeah, your job is your money tap. This is how, for most people in this earth, it works. There's a money tap, and then there's a drain. The drain representing just expenditure. Yeah, there's nothing there that is reserved for them for future years. All the money they earn this week is somehow spent, and it leaves no footprint that or of a garden that keeps feeding the income earner in the future. It's all wasted. Yeah, this week's income is gone. Next week's is gone, like that. Now look at this other diagram. At the very top, you have the money tap, and he's written "you working for money." So the money tap, this time he's put in a bunch of buckets. Roger Hamilton's illustration. So let's say this is you. So you put in one of those investment buckets that we talked about. Let's say maybe you go to your bank and you ask them if they have a fund, like a mutual fund or unit trust or something like that. Don't worry, every bank pretty much has it. So if you don't know what it is, your bank will explain it to you. So you set up something whereby your income will be automatically, a portion of it automatically sent to an investment. Yeah. So what happens is that little bucket catches some of the drops from your money tap. Maybe you set another bucket below it. Okay. Maybe it's a savings, forced savings, whereby it's not attached to an ATM. Maybe it's fixed and you can't withdraw for a certain amount of time or whatever, right? So now you're turning your tap into investments and security and so on, right? Anything that goes down the drain has no return. Anything that goes into these buckets gives you a return, all right? Because, for example, look at this asset bucket. It's an investment. Maybe you're buying into some shares every month or every week as your income comes in. These shares start to grow. They start to grow. Maybe they also start to give you some dividends, or they just they just grow, whatever. Or maybe you're investing in a business and you keep investing in this business, so this business keeps giving you income, or whatever it is. So now it forms a new money tap. And then that money tap increases your combined income from your job and your assets. Remember, an asset is something that creates income for you. It could be passive income, it could be active income, it could be residual income, whatever. We'll get into that a bit later. Actually, we won't really cover this in much detail, but the point is, you are now using part of your earnings to create a garden that provides for you. Now, use your imagination. Imagine that over time, this accumulation allows you to even add another third bucket, and then another fourth bucket, another fifth bucket, until these buckets replace your job, so that you're earning more from your buckets than you are from your job. You can retire early, yeah, and do whatever it is you want. You don't have to retire, actually. If you love your job, probably won't even want to retire. But anyways, you get the point. So this is what the money taps and system is. You have to create vehicles, and you don't have to invent anything. They've all been invented for you. In fact, the simplest thing is to call up your bank and ask them, what products do you have beyond savings accounts? Do you have unit trust? Do you have mutual funds? Do you have any vehicles I can force to invest? Or you can call your insurance company, you can go to the internet, you can go to Yahoo Finance or whatever, and you'll find lots and lots of vehicles there. And you can talk to friends who have money, and they'll advise you. It's easy to do nowadays, it's not a complicated thing. But anyways, that's the taps and buckets. I hope you got it. Now, in a similar way, time is actually a more crucial resource than your money. Time is a thing you really need to invest properly. If you just you have only 24 hours a day, right? Take out sleep time, then it's a lot less. You take out the time you have to go to your job, it's a lot less, right? Now, the remaining time, if you just throw it for, towards TV or things that are not going to give you a return, remember, a return, then you're wasting life as well, right? What this diagram is trying to say is invest your time wisely. The little time that you have at the beginning, invest it wisely towards creating the financial buckets we talked about, towards educating yourself about finance and everything, yeah? Spend time to educate yourself, get some financial intelligence, and then spend time to apply this financial intelligence. And because of that time, you've invested that time, it will free you down the road. If you don't do it, you will forever be enslaved. If you do it, you might not have some good joy now because maybe you want that time to watch TV. You might have to sacrifice that. But down the road, it will free you so that you have all the time in the world, because then you no longer have to work anymore. You've liberated yourself. Number two, you've got your passive income coming, And number three, you're already financially educated, so you don't have to spend time, educating yourself further that much anymore. It's like going to school. At the beginning, we all have to go to school, and then you go to college. Then after that, you don't have to go to school. So investing time is extremely critical to this system. Now, in a nutshell, invest more of your money and spend less of it to attain eventual financial freedom, right? Invest more of your time and spend less of it to attain eventual financial time freedom, okay? But all the while, try to find a balance between wanting what you have and having what you want, yeah? A balance between present living and future living, etc. So it's a psychological game. It's a point where you realize you still have to live in the present, yeah? You don't have to like kill yourself and bore yourself to death, but at the same time, consider that you cannot just hedonistically go about doing your things and expect that the future will be there will be no consequences, you see. So it's a kind of a balance you have to do, and it's a psychological game, especially when it comes to spending, yeah. I mean, I was reading about executives in the United States the other day on Yahoo, people who are earning $350,000 a year, and they're feeling financial pressure. So more money doesn't give you less pressure or more pressure. It's your mind. If you think it's too, whatever you have is too little, if you think then you must have that super yacht and super jet and everything, but you don't, or it's a struggle to maintain it, then you're gonna be screwed. If you think you have enough, if you think you're happy as you are, no matter where you are, then you're not going to have that pressure. So it's very much a psychological game. It depends on your perspective and your attitudes as well as these actions. Right, so now we talked about the buckets and the tap. If you just say to yourself, I will force myself to invest every month, most likely you'll fail. Most of us fail. I fail, Most people don't have the discipline, and you shouldn't expect them to have the discipline to force themselves to save and invest. It doesn't happen. So you have to make it simple and automatic, right? You have to make a way whereby you guarantee to yourself that you always have money to invest no matter what happens. And this is a very simple way. But when you do this, you're going to end up building a garden of wealth, or rather income producing assets that will feed you long after you stop working. And I don't mean when you retire at 65. This system, I've used it before, and I've seen people use it. It works even when you're in your 20s, in your 30s. Depends on how fast you go, all right? Now, remember, always keep in mind, the point eventually is not to spend or to have bling bling or to show off to your neighbor. The point is to make money work for you and not the other way around. That's the whole point. Having to work for money is a necessary inconvenience. You should be planning to get out of that as soon as you can, all right? Now that stop exchanging your time, your life for money. Use your life for other things. There are so many other things to do on this planet. That's called financial freedom, all right? How do you do this? This is the key idea. Pay yourself first, automatically, guaranteed. If you pay yourself last, there'll never be anything left. Before we move on, well, let's look at this quickly. Pay yourself first means this. Let's say you get your paycheck on the first of every month, yeah? Before you even see that money, a portion of it should have automatically gone to an investment vehicle that is very hard for you to withdraw from. That's what it means. That's as simple as it is. Now, most people say, okay, look, I've got the paycheck on the first of this month. I'm going to spend it throughout the month. If at the end of the month, before I get my next paycheck, there's something left, I will invest that. Trust me, that hardly works. For 90-something% of the people, it doesn't work, because no matter what you have, money is a liquid asset. It will find a way to be spent. You'll never have anything extra at the end. Very few people the vast majority of this planet cannot do that. And it's not their fault. It's just the way money works. It's not that they're lazy or stupid or undisciplined. It's just the way it works. There's nothing wrong with that. So why not play along the way money works? Just get that investment to disappear even before you see your paycheck. As in, your money you're supposed to get your pay in your account today. And before it lands there, it's already been clipped. And that part of it has already gone into an investment. That's what I call a forced automatic saving or investment. Now, how do you do this? You can talk to your employer if you're employed, or if you're self-employed or otherwise, whatever. You can set it up with your bank. You can have a standing order. It's very simple. It takes 5 minutes. You go to your bank or your employer, you sign a document, and it's contractually fixed that a certain amount of that, your income, will be automatically deducted and sent to your chosen investment or saving vehicle before you even see it, so that you'll start seeing a low amount landing to your bank account. And somehow psychologically, you'll learn to live with this. You'll think, oh no, but every month I spent everything. Actually need more. No, trust me, if you start clipping, you'll find a way to live with it. Somehow you will. It's amazing. You will. Don't worry about it. Just try it. You will. Yeah? Takes a few minutes. That's how you do it. You will soon learn to miss what you don't see. Trust me. Don't worry about it. If you get 10% less than you got last time, somehow it will fit. You'll find a way to cut things out. Yeah? Now, make sure it's very hard for you to withdraw from that savings or investments. There are vehicles that make it very hard, and there are vehicles that make it very easy. For example, a simple savings account with an ATM card makes it very easy to withdraw. Yeah, fixed deposits can be, they're still easy to withdraw from. But anyways, look, there are lots of vehicles. It depends on you. Please, depends on which country you live in, your circumstances, situation. Just go talk to your bank, talk to some financial advisors, talk to some friends with money, Google around and find some vehicles that are good for you. Join clubs and forums where people invest. I mean, if you put your mind to this, you'll find them. Doesn't matter. You don't have to be like, I love finance and I'm very sharp at finance. No, anyone can do this. There's a lot of advice and information available to us nowadays. Now, another rule is this: except if you want to invest in a true asset, and by true asset I mean an asset that actually produces cash for you. A car is not an asset. A car just consumes cash. Yeah. Except to invest in a true asset, you should never withdraw more than 25% of the built-up capital. Never consume your capital. That's Warren Buffett's rule number 1. And if you do take 25% or less, always top it up again before another withdrawal. Let's say you have a serious emergency, and a holiday is not a serious emergency, a late car insurance bill is not a serious emergency. I'm talking about a life-threatening emergency, and you feel that you must go into this capital. Then, even then, don't take more than 25% and then replace it before your next serious emergency, Unless, of course, you're using you want to buy an asset, a real asset like a business, or you want to buy shares, then you can take the whole 100% of that savings, because now you're converting it into a cash generating asset. Okay, now if you do this right, you can safely forget about budgeting, self-discipline, and get rich quick schemes, because the power of compound interest over time will guarantee that you build wealth. Yeah, think about this. Once you do this, you don't need to be disciplined, you don't need to be whatever, because it's automatic. The money is just going into an investment automatically. The banks and your employers are handling it. Yeah, so like we said, compound interest grows fast. For example, if let's say you put $100 a month at what do you call it, an investment that grows at 12% a year, it will become $1.2 million in 40 years. But check this out. You're actually spending 100 times 12, right? $100 a month times 12 months in a year, yeah, times 40 years is equal to $48,000. I think my math is right, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you'll have spent $48,000 to make 1.2 million. Why? Because 12%, that's the interest rate, 40 years, that's a time. So imagine that. This is $48,000 you'd have spent over those 40 years anyways. Imagine you live through to 40 years. You'll still live through through another 40 years, right? Let's say you will. You'll have spent $48,000 to make $1.2 million. You can be an idiot and get this right, It's so easy. It's really amazingly easy. You don't have to know business or whatever. You just need to find the investment vehicle and keep putting money there. Okay? How much do you put in? Well, it depends. What level do you want to end up with? If you want to end up dead broke, you spend more than you earn and you never pay yourself first. If you want to end up poor, spend what you earn and never pay yourself first. If you want to end up middle class, you pay yourself first, 5 to 10% of your gross income. If you end up upper middle class, I'm talking about from your investment gains or whatever, you pay yourself first 10 to 15% of your gross income. If you want to end up rich, you pay yourself 15 to 20% of your gross income. And rich enough to retire early, consider paying yourself 20% or more of your gross income. Up to you. Now, where do you put, like we said, the bank's investment products, mutual or unit trust funds, a business, shares, forex, futures, whatever, bonds, so many things. There are thousands of investments or saving vehicles. Some of them are good, some are bad. So visit sites like Yahoo Finance, speak to your banker, seek an advisor, ask wealthy friends. But at the very end, always do your own due diligence. Double check. Don't just get a tip in a bar and then go invest. That would be very silly. Always do your due diligence. Ask around. Read documents and whatever. Just make sure you're fine. Right? The key is to make it regular and automatic. Done as a first thing as soon as that paycheck is available. You start simple. You start now. You can even start small. Yeah? Because the point is to get started. Then if you want to, you can complicate it later. But the easier you start, the better. Just get started and get started today. Now let's look at the next system. Yeah, profit and loss. It shows the results of your decisions on your financial performance. Right. Once you are able to understand what your profit and loss is, and even an employee has profit and loss. Okay, because think about it. If you're an employee, at the end of the month you get a paycheck, right? If you consume all that money, you've made zero profit. If you consume more than you earned, you made a loss. If you consume less than you earned, you made a profit. So it's not just businesses that have profit and loss. Even individuals who are employed have profit and loss. It's just that they don't think that way. Yeah. So your cumulative profit or loss is what forms your net worth. People with a strong net worth have accumulated plenty of profit in their lives. People with low net worth have retained little of their profits. The key idea is to end up with as much profit as possible. You cut expenses until you attain freedom, right? This goes against the grain of, what do you call it? People who believe that, what am I trying to say here? What I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to limit your mind as to your expectations and what you can live up to. No, you can live up to a lot. But what I'm saying is, keep an abundant mind. It will keep attracting more and more to you. But as you manifest that physical, manage it properly, right? Take care of it. Guard it as sacred. Honor it. Don't just waste it thinking that, oh yeah, I can attract anything I want. Of course you can attract anything you want. You can. But you can still attract anything you want while still managing what you got properly. It doesn't mean that when you're managing what you got properly, you're scared that you cannot attract anything you want. No, you can do both. Okay? So, decision area. No, okay, this chart, at the very top, we're going to list areas of decisions. Sorry, this will become clear as we move on. Now, first, let's look at the profit and loss system, right? The decisions you make within the profit and loss system are called operational decisions. Like, how do you operate in life? What do you do? What are you doing? What are you spending, consuming, blah, blah, operational, right? Let's say you get an income. Let's say, for example, it's a salary, or maybe it could be from your business or whatever, or royalties from a book, Usually there's some expenses related to that, some work-related expenses. So you minus from that income, and you'll get gross income, yeah? And then the government will come and say, I want some of that as tax. So you minus that from your gross income. Then you're going to get a take-home income, yeah? And then you minus that again. You minus your expenditures, you could say daily living expenditures, which include needs and wants, things that are necessary, things that are not. And whatever it is that you spend, once you minus it, you'll get a profit or a loss, right? Now, that was a profit and loss or income statement part of it. Now let's look at the balance sheet. The balance sheet will show you your, by the way, when we go back to that, the point here that I wanted to make is, as you can see, the key point here is to try and minimize your expenses as much as possible. You'd be surprised, you can get by with a lot less. Just if you talk to people who are good at this, and they'll show you how to minimize anything that is as an expenditure. You can minimize your tax, you can minimize your expenditures, you can minimize your work-related expenses, so that you end up with a bigger profit. That's the goal. That's what you should be thinking about. Those are your decision areas when it comes to operations. Think that way and get better and better at it. Now, the balance sheet deals with your net worth or your financial condition. Yeah. In other words, what we talked about before was income, but over time, income is like every month or every week or whatever. Over time, how much assets have you accumulated? How much liabilities or debts or IOUs have you accumulated? This cumulative, when you take your assets minus your liabilities, things you owe to people, then it gives you your equity or your net worth. This one is like over time, cumulative, right? So the key idea here is to increase your net worth every day, every week. It just grows bigger and bigger, okay? You can do that by increasing your income, by increasing your asset base, by a whole bunch of things. But that's why we talked about decision areas. Now, we have expanded our diagram here. In the middle, remember, we're talking about profit and loss, and we had operational decisions to make. In other words, what things do you do to earn more income? What things do you do to reduce your expenses? What things you do to cut your income tax legally and reduce your expenditure and so on. Then now we have two other decision areas. On the right, you have financing, where you get extra money, or what money do you owe to people or things. Then on the left, you have investments. What assets do you gain, right? These are decision areas. Now, first thing is your profit and loss. Over time, remember, profit and loss is like every month or every week, however you get your income. Over time, whatever cumulative profit you have goes towards your equity. It builds your worth, your net worth, okay? It goes towards your equity. Now, you may also have liabilities. For example, you may have employees that you owe money to, or you may have bills that are coming up, or debts, short-term debts, little loans you've taken that are less than a year. Yeah. Now, when you take those short-term debts, they're called current liabilities, and you add long-term liabilities, long-term debts such as car loans, house loans, and things like that. Yeah. And then when you add them to that, the equity that you've accumulated, you get your total liabilities and net worth. So in other words, here you're saying your net worth plus your debts, they form your financing decision tree. Yeah, it's called a balance sheet because your asset side usually should equal your liabilities and your net worth, which means if you have a lot of assets and very little liabilities, then your net worth will be very high. If you have a lot of assets and a lot of liabilities, your net worth will be very low, and so on. The idea is that they always somehow equal, they always tally. And let's look at the asset side. You have current assets or liquid assets. That means things like cash, shares, things that you can liquidate very quickly and easily. When you add those to your fixed assets, things like your house, if you own a house, or plants and machinery, whatever, plus your other assets. Let's say you're an author, so you have royalties from your books, or or maybe you have a business, so the business has a goodwill built into it, or brand value, you could say. Yeah, when you add all that, you get your total assets. These two columns, like we said, assets and liabilities and net worth, can always balance. The idea is, if you want to have a lot of equity, then you need a lot of assets and very little liabilities. Okay. But you can see how it all works together. The more profit you accumulate, the more equity you have. And the more equity you have, the more you can buy assets, so on. Anyways, before we move on, let's have a quick note on net worth. Assets minus liabilities is equal to net worth. We've already said that. The more assets you have, the less liabilities you have, the higher your net worth. But however, it is sometimes wise to take on good debt, to borrow good money, to finance an asset as acquisition, as long as it makes good sense. For example, if you know you have a good business to buy or to grow, you can borrow some money carefully and use that to grow that business. So as long as the gains are bigger than the repayment of that loan, why not borrow as much as you can, as long as your repayments are lower than the gains, right? So sometimes it's a very good idea. In fact, it's brilliant to use leverage. If it's smart, it's always better to use leverage. Yeah. Now let's look at cash flow. Cash flow cash flow systems enable you to focus and plan your cash flow needs, your inflows and your outflows, right? The key idea is never run out of cash. Always have cash in hand for your requirements, and especially to allow you to take advantage of investment opportunities. You never want to run out of cash. It's a bad idea, all right? Especially when there's a good opportunity at hand, right? Now here we are again. This is a chart. I hope you can read this. Sorry if it's too small. But red means decrease, green means increase. So investing decreases cash. Think about it. For you to buy a house, your cash will go down because it goes into the house. When you sell the asset, let's say you sell the house, it increases cash. So investing decreases your cash. Selling assets or disinvesting increases it. When it comes to this decision area of operations, which is the profit and loss column, expenses and spending decreases cash, obvious, duh. Saving and increases cash. And when it comes to this other column, borrowing increases cash, retaining your profits increases cash, paying back debt decreases cash. That's why if you got all these things going on, you need a way to easily manage this stuff. It's not intuitive. We are not built to automatically do this in our heads. If you do this in your head, you're likely to fail. You need to do this on paper or otherwise. So now let's look at the tools that can help you. Remember, all we have described above are the basics of accounting. If you're an accountant or you've worked in a business, you know that these are the basics. Yeah, all businesses follow the same idea. So there are already tools that can help you, because we're not inventing the wheel here, reinventing the wheel. And these tools are built for individuals, although they still use accounting. Now, you can use pen and paper. That's my least favorite. It's very complicated. The hell with it. You need to be an accountant to be able to do that. And then why use pen and paper is so difficult. But some people, it's easier to use pen and paper. So if it's up, if you want to do that. Otherwise, you can use downloadable software such as Quicken or YNAB. You need a budget. It's actually a software called You Need a Budget. You can use online applications such as mint.com, etc. Now, I recommend YNAB because it has rules that actually help you win. It's smartly thought out, and I'll give you a download link below this video. I'm assuming you're watching this from merlinmindpower.com. But if you're not, whatever, just Google merlinmindpower.com, and when you go here, you'll find the link down there. Or, Google YNAB, and hopefully you'll find the link. Anyways, rule number one. This I got these screenshots from YNAB's website, just so that I can explain you what are these rules that I like so far. Rule number one. This software helps you give every dollar a job. In other words, your money doesn't tell you what to do. You're the boss. So when you earn money, you plan how to use it, and then you follow the plan. This is what they mean. Let's say there's $500 in your account balance, yeah? If you're doing this manually, you'll think, oh, I got 500 bucks. So I can afford sushi. I can do all these things. I can do all this stuff, And then a few days later, the bills come, and then you're like, oh my God, I just ate my 500 bucks in sushi and movies and everything. I have completely forgotten this bill. And then now you're screwed, right? Now, with this rule, what happens is, although, this accounting software tells you have $500 in your checking account, which is true, it allows you to assign each of those dollars a category or a job. So you can assign 150 of it to food, 10 to eating out, 40 to gas, 100 to utilities, 200 to car payment. So now when you're looking at that $500, you're no longer thinking, oh my God, I got all this money that I don't need. It actually has assignments, right? Now, how did you come with these categories? Maybe from last month. How much did you spend? So now when you're let's say going for you're eating out, you know very well that although there's 500 bucks, only 10 is assigned for eating out. It's a little bit like budgeting, but it's more than giving it a job. And hang on, just let's go through rule 2, 3, and 4, and you'll see how this works. It makes sense as a whole. Now, the second one is save for a rainy day. In other words, sometimes there are some large infrequent expenses that kind of like surprise you, and then they send you into a mess. So sometimes, let's say things like you have a car insurance bill that comes every 6 months. Sometimes you forget about that, or maybe your refrigerator breaks down, or something. Things that hardly come every day, and you kind of forget about them, right? What happens is you can think, okay, last year I spent maybe this much on car insurance, and so sorry, I'm getting all mixed up here. Let's say with that car insurance, you know that it'll come in maybe roughly 6 months from now. So this software allows you to allocate every month $100 into an account, a theoretical account. It's a software that's managing. Maybe your bank only has one account, but the software is telling you, look, there's $100 of this a month that we need to set aside so that car payment can be made. So although your bank account has just one number, the software is helping you split that number visually into amounts for irregular payments. So it kind of helps you save by force. And if these payments don't happen, then you end up with a surplus automatically, whether you like it or not. Same thing with rule number 1 when we talked about categories. If you don't use a particular category up completely, then you end up with a gain that you didn't expect. This kind of helps you budget in real time, in the way the world works. Not in some theoretical way. It works in the same way that real life works. Rule number 3 that this software follows, YNAB, is that it says, okay, fine, life is not always a straight line. Some things happen that are out of expectations. Now, let's say something goes out of whack today, and you end up overspending on a particular category. Remember, you had categories under rule number 1. So maybe even like some visit, you have a big party for your kids, and then your grocery bill goes out of beyond this category. So you don't panic. All you do is you go back to software, and you take some amounts from the other categories that you haven't completely finished spending, and you move them to your, let's say, groceries category, and that way your other categories shrink. So this way, even though you still have a certain amount of money in your bank, in your mind you know that you better not touch it, because you've already used it for something else. It tells you it's fine, you overspent, but it's okay. We're going to just move some surplus money from the clothing category or the going out category, move it to groceries, and that will be the adjustment for this month. And by the way, this software helps you roll adjustments over into every month, to the next month, to the next month, whatever. So it's really cool. It just allows you to think of money in a practical way, because when you just leave in the account, you don't think practically, you know. And then rule number 4, this software helps you to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Most people take about 4 months to readjust, because a lot of people, what they do is the income for January is spent in January, the income for February is completely spent in February, for April is completely spent in April. But what the software does, it helps you adjust so that now your January income is actually being spent in February. So you have that 1 month cushion. So even if your February income doesn't come, you're not caught with your pants down. The February one is spent in March, and so on. And over time, you extend this gap. It really helps, and it's a software that really helps you do this. That's why I like it. So I recommend this. Just use the link below this video to get it. Right, so we've covered all this, the system. I think this is one of those videos you have to watch maybe 2-3 times and make your notes and whatever, and do your research and watch it again, go talk to friends, watch it again, whatever. It's one of those videos. Please do that. It's very important, because once you do this, you start moving towards financial and time liberty. It might take a while, but you don't really need discipline. You just need to do a few simple things over and over. That's all. A few simple things over and over. That's all. But I think it's fun. It's great. Go for it. And in the next video, we're going to be covering, we're going to look at assets and liabilities a bit more closely, and then we'll actually simplify them. We're not going to complicate them, we'll simplify them, because a lot of people don't understand the difference between assets and liabilities, and this is extremely important. Once you get this, then, you know, for example, some people think a car is an asset, or the house that they bought to live in is an asset. It's not really an asset. A car will consume your money, so it's a liability. The house that you live in, as long as you're paying mortgage to it, it's the bank's asset. It's the bank that is earning money from it, not you. You're spending money on it. So once you understand what an asset is, a liability, how to work that out, it kind of simplifies your life. So we'll take a simple look at that, and actually it will be quite a short video. This one was very, I think, in my opinion, a bit complicated. The next one will be easier, but please watch this one again and again. Thank you.